Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the DLF Trade Show on the DLF YouTube channel. Russ, Addison, here again, as always, whether we want to be or not, whether we're fighting that week or not, whether I just can't stand that dumb, smug smile on his face or not. We're here.
Wow. Do you need to talk about something real quick?
I'm still bitter about the TA11 draft. I'm not going to lie. I scroll through my photos and I still have that screenshot of you just like, hey, I just stole Devonta Smith and T. Higgins from you. And I'm like, that son of a...
Well, we fixed one part of that. You have Devonta Smith now.
I know. But
so you're saying you just need to get T. Higgins.
I just need to get T. Higgins. Or, I mean, we were going to talk, I was going to bring it up at the end of the show, but let's just bring it up now. There's a chance that both of us can have Devonta Smith and T. Higgins on a team. Now, this is purely hypothetical at the moment. Purely out in the wind. It is not real just yet. But we were talking, because we could never think of what to talk about on this show. So we're just like, why don't we just make a little easy content? Why don't we just make a watcher league? Let's make a Dynasty Trade Show league. Name to be thought of later, because
Dynasty Trade Show League.
Dynasty Trade Show League. So if you're interested, let us know in the comments. Maybe throw me a quick DM. Or don't send a tweet that is at Addison saying that he is a jerk, and we'll take that as a you're interested also.
That works too. So although I get those from random people, so I don't know if that's a good indicator, but
I'll check my DMs, he'll check his notifications, and we'll know if you're interested. And if we get enough interest, and let's be honest, if we're not lazy at that point, we'll slap a league together. And I mean, we got a week or two before we have to worry about the season starting, before the draft is done. So, we'll see how it goes. We'll talk about it this week. We'll talk about it next week. And if we get enough interest, we'll slap a league together, because we like leagues.
Drafting is fun.
Trading is a lot of fun. And it will be very entertaining when Addison and I just start yelling at each other in the league chat. Just to put it out there.
We're going to have the longest on the clock time, because we just won't be able to decide who to take.
Oh, and then when I completely forget we're sharing a team and I just draft and he's like, what'd you do? And I'm like, don't worry about it.
You just make a trade. You don't let me know.
Get ready for it. That's how I roll. I don't need your approval. What do you think? What do you think this is? All right, but let's move on, because I'll bring it up again at the end of the show, and we'll continue to make fun of each other for it. We wanted to talk about training camp news, because that's what's going on right now, and there's starting to be a lot more of it, because when you are watching this, there's going to be football in a couple of hours. That's
awesome. Heck yeah, dude! The Hall of Fame game's tomorrow.
Hey, there it goes. That was me yesterday, just finding out that the Hall of Fame game was this
Let's
week.
Go. It's August.
Yeah. So we're here. We made it. Football is here, and we are very close to, being able to react to news as it happens. But we're not quite there yet, and we're going to start off with, I think, drama we're going to just have to straight up get used to for the next few years, maybe forever, because while running backs are an integral part to an offense as a position, the NFL has caught on to dynasty managers in that maybe the specific running back doesn't always matter. Especially now that teams are leaning towards not workhorsing running backs. Players like Jonathan Taylor are going to have a hard time getting a contract, just like we saw Saquon have a hard time, just like we see Josh Jacobs still having a hard time. And Saquon doesn't have a long-term deal yet. He just he made a 1-year deal to be able to keep talking long-term. So it's rough for running backs. It seems like running backs need the opposite of the rookie wage scale. The rookie wage scale should kick in for everyone but running backs, because running backs can't get second contracts, so they might as well make as much as they can on their rookie contract.
Right.
So trades. Okay, 12-team Superflex. Jonathan Taylor for Najee Harris and a 24 second. Yeah, I want Jonathan Taylor. I'm just going to say that. I would send this for Jonathan Taylor so fast because they're this. No, I was about to say they're the same age. They're not. Najee's older. Yeah. So Jonathan Taylor in the analyzer at 619.6. Najee Harris at 330.2, which honestly I do think should go up will go up, not should go up, because I do believe that offense can't be as bad as it was last year, and he played a lot of last season hurt. But a 24 second, and at this point, shouldn't move the bar too much. Like, you throw a 24 second when it's in the same tier, and you just want to move within that tier. That Jonathan Taylor and Najee Harris, even with this news for Taylor, are very far apart for me. So I would gladly at any point in my day send Harris in a second for Jonathan Taylor. And if I am doing this the other way around, if that was a first, I'd probably be okay with it.
I was going to ask you that question. If it was Najee in the first, would you trade JT? It
would be a very team specific thing, because I do think Najee's going to put up decent points this year. And chances are, if I have Jonathan Taylor, I just want points anyway. So if it's a first in a league where I think I could easily turn that first into something good, or turn around and do this a different way, a first and wide receiver for a better wide receiver. Like, I don't do that move as my last. If this is an active enough league where I can cascade that into something else, yeah, I'd downgrade from Taylor, because that's what we talk about all the time. Downgrading at running back, getting something extra, and using that something extra to either fill your lineup, which I guess we're sort of at the point where you need to start worrying about, because it's August and football's happening soon, which I have to get ready to flip that switch, but not quite yet in a very active league. I'm not there just yet, but if I can get Najee in a first for Taylor, and then I know it's a league where I can use that first for something else, I think I'd be down for that. I don't think I send it out, but if someone sends it to me, I seriously think about it.
I would do Najee in a first. I would trade away JT for Najee in a first. But I do agree. I don't think I would. If I had Najee, I wouldn't be like, oh, now's a good time to go buy JT. Let me send him Najee in a first for JT. I would, if apparently you can get Najee in a second done. So just do that. Or if you had an extra second and it was Najee in 2 seconds, that's all better than a first. This trade happened. I think it was yesterday. These are literally, so we have 3 trades for Jonathan Taylor, this one and then 2 more. All 3 of them were done in the last 2 days. So this is all
nice,
like uber reactionary Jonathan Taylor news.
Or the next trade we have is, these are all 12-team Superflex. Cool. Jonathan Taylor for Kenny Pickett and Joe Mixon. Taylor still in at 619.6. Kenny Pickett in at 195.3. That's rough, Kenny Pickett. And Joe Mixon in at 147.9 for a total of Najee Harris. That's rough. I would so easily send Kenny Pickett and Joe Mixon. And even because I was going to say, if Kenny Pickett is my QB3, I do this so fast it makes my head spin. But even if Kenny Pickett's my QB2 and I'm leaving myself with 1 quarterback right now, I would still do this based on value and find another way to get a quarterback. Like, that's how much I want to send away Kenny Pickett and Joe Mixon to get Jonathan Taylor.
If Kenny Pickett's your QB2, you have other problems to worry about. But getting Jonathan Taylor.
But I still get what you're saying. But I do have plenty of these teams. But even if it is one of those teams, which means I'm competing.
Yeah, you just got Jonathan Taylor.
Right. Because I'm spending it on a running back. I'll find a way to go get Derek Carr. I'll find a way to go get Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder, any of these quarterbacks that are starting. Because, again, if Kenny Pickett's my QB2, all I need is a starting quarterback, and it fills that void, because I don't know about you. I don't have much hope for his ceiling. Yeah, there's no world where I think I would, if someone sent me a trade where I would get Jonathan Taylor for these 2, I don't think there's a world I hit that reject button.
Jonathan Taylor.
Speaking of, we have one more Jonathan Taylor trade. Jonathan Taylor and Michael Gallup. Oof. There's still trades going down with Michael Gallup involved. That's cool. For a 24 first and Aaron Jones. Jonathan Taylor, 619.6. Michael Gallup, 22.9 for a total of 642.5. 24 first, 332. Aaron Jones, only 193 for a total of 525. This is a little closer. This is seemingly the closest we've had of any of these Jonathan Taylor trades. And this goes along with, yeah, I'm getting a decent amount of points out of Aaron Jones this year. I know that offense has a chance of just not being good, but I think the pieces are okay enough that at least Aaron Jones will still get a lot of play. He's going to be the one catching the ball out of the backfield, and he's good. Like, that's really what it comes down to. He scores touchdowns even when the team doesn't score that many. He's good enough for me to say, all right, okay.
This is another one that I think is just so easily Jonathan Taylor. It is like on the analyzer side, like the closest one that we've gotten, edging out the Najee in the second one straight up for JT. But it's still, at the end of the day, you're still buying low on Jonathan Taylor because of news that isn't related to anything that he has done on the field. It's just off-field stuff, contracts, the whole issue that we're just going to have with probably every single running back that's not a first or second year guy.
And praying that they change it in the next CBA, which I don't think is for like another close to decade.
I am these three, and again, these are the three, the first three trades that popped up on the trade in the trade finder, but there are other ones in here that are just more examples of this. There's Jonathan Taylor and Pat Frymuth for Dameon Pierce and a first and second. There's Taylor and DK Metcalf for Aaron Jones and Jerry Jeudy.
What?
There is Taylor for George Pickens and a first.
All right, I'm going to go. Every competing team is about to send it on for Jonathan Taylor.
Here's the best one. Jonathan Taylor for 224 firsts. And that was a week and a half ago before all this news. So I had to scroll back to before the news to where I found really the first good Jonathan Taylor.
That's at least even on the analyzer. If one of those is top 5, I call that a victory for trading away almost any running back. So like short of Bijan at this point, getting 2 first, especially if one of them seems to be early enough, then that's a win.
Send some offers.
Yeah, that sounds like the plan. This one I'm very interested in because we love us some J.K. Dobbins. And we have no idea what's going on with some J.K. Dobbins right now. He's not practicing. No one will say why. He found his way onto the PUP list. No one will say why. So we have no idea what's going on with J.K. Dobbins. But the thing that's better in this situation than in the Jonathan Taylor one is the cost difference between the two is very, very different. So the first trade we have, teammates, J.K. Dobbins for Zay Flowers. 12-team Superflex. Dobbins in at 287.1, Flowers at 221.4. So insanely fair. What is really funny because in drafts, Zay Flowers was at that 108, 109 area. I don't think you were getting anyone to pay the 108 or 109 for J.K. Dobbins, which I love that. It just shows the difference if you have patience. like just wait a month or two and you'll be able to do these things you weren't able to do during the draft, because during the draft people have that rookie fever and want to get these things done. This is probably the classic competing or rebuilding, because again, after rookie drafts, I don't think much value has changed of these players. Every once in a while we get some players that fall for a reason. We get some players like the Kenny Golladay magic, where he was getting drafted in the 3rd, and then 2 months later he was getting drafted in the 1st in rookie drafts. Like, we don't really have any of that this year. I don't think anything has changed much since the draft itself. Even if it's just this year, man, Dobbins has a ceiling. It might not be RB1 ceilings because he doesn't catch the ball nearly enough. But if he finished RB6 to 10 or 11, I wouldn't be super surprised. Like, if he had a Ramondre-esque season, yeah. And I would sell a wide receiver 2 prospect for that all day.
Yeah.
Other way around, I'd probably do this also. Like, if I decide to blow it up, say Flowers is a decent building point. If not, he's a perfect player that if he has a good game in the first 2 games, Zay Flowers in a second to go upgrade to something else you like better, I think is a great move. So I really like this trade. It's even in the analyzer. To me, it's narrative-based, competing versus rebuilding, and something I could see legitimately happening in a lot of leagues.
Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. I think this is a fantastic trade, but I do think that on the competing side, if you are somebody who, has either stuck with J.K. Dobbins for the past year or even 2 years, or if you're somebody who bought J.K. Dobbins cheap, like you got him for like a second round pick, you know, last year or at the start of the offseason this year, and you were hoping that JK was going to be able to come back and look good for the start of training camp and preseason and all that kind of stuff, and you just haven't seen that yet, and you're a little bit not worried, but you're just kind of like, I don't really want to deal with this, like I don't know if JK Dobbins is the same JK Dobbins that he was prior to the ACL injury, and I don't really want to stick around to find out if he is or if he isn't, because if he's not, then his value is going to plummet. Like Antonio Gibson right now, even though he's been very productive in the past couple of years, he's just disgusting to us now, and he's like RB 35 in ADP, whereas Dobbins is like RB 17. So there is that, he could fall that far if he just doesn't produce or doesn't produce all that well, doesn't live up to expectations. And we hold grudges against those kind of players. So if you're that kind of person, even if you are competing, you're just kind of like, I don't really want to wait to see it on the field, and I just want to cash out now. Zay Flowers, I think, is a fantastic player to go get because he's not directly a first-round pick, as in like a 24 first or a 25 first, but he does have the insulation of a first-round pick in that, he's a rookie this year. He has a lot of hype. He has the draft capital. And even if he were to get hurt, he would still have insulated value that we're like, well, he'll just be injured and then he'll come back next year. He's still going to be, a 23-year-old young wide receiver that we have hope for. Bateman held a lot of value from year 1 to year 2.
I was about to say his own teammate, and I'm still there for it. Like,
right.
If you like that player enough, you find your reasons to give excuses for them and let them keep going.
Right. Exactly. So it's a good pivot option for a little bit more insulation if you're looking for that.
All right. The next trade, J.K. Dobbins and Mike Evans for a 24 first and a 24 second. Dobbins at 287, Mike Evans at 169 for a total of 456. 24 first, 332, 24 second, 114, total of 446. This makes perfect sense. First for Dobbins, second for Evans. It's fine. If you're rebuilding, yeah, that's cool. This is one of those things that I need to point out that I don't think we talk about enough. And because I've had to talk about a couple of, I get DMs all day long of people asking me trade advice. And they're like, but it looks like it's going to be an early 24 second, an early 24 first. You're giving them J.K. Dobbins and Mike Evans. That's going to make the pick a little later. Like, just make sure you're paying. Like, if you're getting the first of the team you're trading players to, make sure you're taking that into account, because J.K. Dobbins and Mike Evans have a very good chance to score a decent amount of points this year. I know Mike Evans' situation clearly got worse because, it's hard to get better from Tom Brady leaving, even when Tom Brady was like 80% Tom Brady. And then you realize, oh, it's Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. And you're just like, uh-oh. But it doesn't matter. Mike Evans is a gigantic man who will still catch every contested ball and then fall. But it's a PPR league. That's all that matters. You don't need yak in a PPR league. So, I still think Mike Evans will have his strong wide receiver 2 season. J.K. Dobbins, I still think, has that low end 1. And that will push that pick back 1 or 2 spots. So yeah. Just keep that in mind when you're doing this. But all that being said, even the analyzer has it pretty much on par. 287 to 332, 168 to 113. I think this is very realistic, and I would be down for both sides of this depending on what it is.
I like this trade a lot too, and I threw this one in here as an example of if you're somebody who's trying to move Dobbins for a first, you're probably not going to get that 1-for-1. Like, I don't think anybody's buying Dobbins right now for a 2024 first. So you're going to have to add something, or take a hit in some other fashion, whether that's a downgrade at another position or, in this kind of circumstance where Mike Evans for a future 24 second. I do agree with you that Mike Evans is really hard to trade right now, but I feel like a lot of people would still just be like, especially if you're competing, you're like, well, I'll give you my second for Mike Evans. That'll help solidify my wide receiver depth. And even if he's not an every week player for me, then that's still better than what the second is going to give me. So just an example of what you would need to add to J.K. Dobbins, or what you might need to, fashion up a trade into ultimately turning Dobbins into a 2024 first.
All right, here we go. Okay, so this next one, this is going to be rough for us because I remember both of us were down on Javonte Williams after the injury. And then it turns out you were somehow lower than I was. And then you dragged me down to your level. So I'm very curious to see if we can find any of these trades where we will pick Javonte Williams. 12-team, 1 quarterback. Javonte Williams for Chris Godwin, the 109 and a 24 second. Javonte at 360. Chris Godwin at 368. The 109 at 186. 24 second at 83 for a total of 636. I am shocked to see Godwin with that much value.
That is a lot of value.
Shocked. I love it, but shocked. So the 109 in a 1 quarterback league is rough. Like, we are talking already in that Kendra Miller area. Maybe that's where you buy up on Anthony Richardson to try and get that ceiling quarterback play. Like, 109 in Superflex is wonderful because we're talking about that Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston, if you're a Dalton Kincaid person area. You're missing out on that in 1 quarterback. So this 109 is more like a 202 for what we like to talk about. I think I still believe enough in Chris Godwin that I take this Chris Godwin side pretty easily, especially because I can hold on to Godwin, who at least the analyzer says is worth the same. And I think they're probably worth the same. I think maybe both of their numbers should just be lower.
That's fair.
So in my mind, you're still getting these free draft picks to go do things with. And even if we're not drafting them, someone will if I traded to them. So like, I take Godwin on this, and it might be player, like it might be just be the bias that, I mean, you got him hanging up behind you, Penn State pass catchers, let's go. And bias against Javonte and running backs in general, but like this feels very easily the Godwin side.
Yep. I feel like this trade is like the poster child for when people say, "Oh, don't sell right after the injury news and whatnot," because we're just going to be able to just wait a year for them to get healthy. We'll get the puff pieces that they're healthy, that they look really, really good, they're ahead of schedule. Then you sell them. This trade feels like the poster child for that.
Yeah, this is you buying at the potential price, not at what the price should be.
Right.
Like you don't pay 3 months from now prices today. That's defeats the purpose.
Yeah, I was gonna like this trade feels like Javonte never got hurt last year. He just had like a really average season for a Javonte, and we're just hopeful for this 3rd-year running back in a Sean Payton offense with hopefully Russell Wilson coming back and bouncing back, and that feels like what you're buying here out of Javonte, not a running back who is less than a year removed from an ACL injury and a meniscus injury and an LCL injury.
There's a couple of CLs in there that are not good anymore.
Yeah. So even if you say, well, I'd rather have Javonte than Chris Godwin because the upside of having the running back who could produce over the wide receiver makes more sense, and maybe you have some other wide receiver depth and stuff, and you're like, well, I would take Javonte over Godwin. That's fine. I wouldn't necessarily argue that. But the difference between the two is not a first and a second.
Yeah, like take the 109 out, and
that would
feel fine.
Yeah, that'd be fine.
Next and last trade we have is a very interesting one. 12-team Superflex, Javonte Williams and George Pickens for Drake London. Javonte Williams 264, George Pickens 229 for a total of 493. Drake London 453. So this is close. Overpaying that little bit to get the highest value asset. Drake London has an ADP of about 45. George Pickens has an ADP of about 92. Their production can be closer at the end of the season than how far apart those ADPs are. So like if we're saying I can get 70%, 80% of Drake London's production out of George Pickens, which I think is reasonable. Javonte's a nice fill in there. If you think Javonte's going to be good this year.
I'm kind of surprised to hear you say that. I don't know why. Like I feel like this one to me, when I read this, I was like, this is an excellent way to get off of 2 players who have hype right now, but don't have the production to meet that hype, or at least I'm not projecting them to have the production to meet that hype, and just going and getting
here's my thing.
A blue chip prospect player.
If we saw a full season of those last 5-6 games and we knew what Drake London was going to be going forward, and if we saw those last 5-6 games with Kyle Pitts on the field, I would feel a lot more sure about Drake London. I really like him. I like him coming into the season. I like him regardless of those things I just threw in at the end, that we did not see him with Kyle Pitts when Drake London was doing well with Desmond Ridder. Like, that's my biggest worry point. And I'm not sure who to pin that on. Is it going to be bad for Ridder, bad for London, bad for Pitts, or both? I just hope it's not both. I think not the smart. I think the more popular answer on this would be Drake London.
Mm-hmm.
I really like, and I get it.
And the smart answer. You were right the first time.
I said it, so I'll let it be smart. If it was just me saying it, then, that's more up in the air. But like, I get it, at least. I get rolling the dice on Drake London, who we feel more confident about, but getting these two guys that have that upside. And if one of them hits, you might be able to push this value on your side. I'm not one of those people that look back on trades, so I won't be able to do this because usually doesn't work out well in the long run when you look back. But halfway through the season, no, not even halfway, because we want to give Javonte a couple of weeks. Week 10, week 12, Javonte's throwing a strong RB 16 average in points per game. George Pickens is that wide receiver 20. Drake London in that wide receiver 16 area. I think you feel good about having Javonte and Pickens on your team, and especially because they're young. Javonte will play next year, assuming he doesn't hold out. And I have to believe that Steelers offense, again, can't get worse. So I get it. And I'm trying to voice more than, I just want London, because that's the real answer. But I feel like that just makes for boring YouTube videos.
No, I just want Drake London. Go out and do this trade, Drake London, and don't roll the dice on blue chip prospects who had insane rookie seasons analytically. So,
yeah, but you see those one-handed catch George Pickens keeps making?
Yeah, because he
video that came out like yesterday.
Can't separate. That's why.
Well, got to make him look pretty somehow. You can't really make him look pretty if you're by yourself. Well,
offensive pass interference, and
with Kenny Pickett being as inaccurate as he can be, maybe you can make nice catches when you're wide open, but that's not a good point to make, even though it is a point.
Wow.
Look, I can stretch things as far as I want to make it seem like it makes sense and it works for an argument.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the answer is Drake London. All right, well, that's it for us this week. Russ Fisher, Dynasty Outhouse, Addison Hayes at AmazeHayes _. This has been the DLF Trade Show on the DLF YouTube channel. Again, in the comments, let us know if you're interested. DM me at Dynasty Outhouse. Let me know if you're interested in joining a Dynasty league. Clearly, will be Dynasty. So please, if you're just going to one and done us, leave the spot for someone else. And don't forget, just at Addison and calling him a jerk, and we'll take that as you're interested also. And we'll catch you next time.